And we're going to start and we'll let people come on as they come on. And this is voting right acts. And I think I'm allowed to share the screen. All right. Really appreciate all the activity going on. And we're going to just start with the slides. All right. Let me just close this. So basically, upcoming elections and technically upcoming election, right? Because we are now talking about the election that'll be held on November 8th. And it'll be here before we know it. Let me start the slideshow. That would help, right? And so, and it's, obviously the governor's race, Congress, Attorney General, State Auditor. Those are all new candidates. The governor's race includes, of course, Lieutenant Governor. We have our Attorney General, Maura Healey, running against the former state rep, Jeff Deal. And we, I guess, expect, we still have our fingers crossed. We have to change the time for the for candidate Deal because of an opportunity he got, which, we understand with a significant group of leaders to speak at noon. So now we push that back to 1 p.m. We think it's going to happen at 1 p.m., right? You're still waiting to hear from CART, Kathleen. And, I might as well introduce my co-host today. And I'm going to just skip past her mission, sorry, to those of you who want to hear our mission one more time. But basically, she's the manager of education outreach at the Arc of Mass, works with Kerry Mahoney. She served as Mass Families Leadership Coordinator for 4 years. She has been a family support specialist in the past in the Mascot Group. She has 3 children, which we don't mention here, one of them who happens to have a disability. And she also served as a parent leader for the departments creating our Commonwealth project, and it was all about building leadership for our field, both with volunteers and staff. And that included regional inclusion networks, which are now hosted at the collaboration we have on friendships at the ARC with DDS. So, and then just, I guess, for those of you, I just want to put a plug in for advocating. There's an alert on our website. You can go to thearcofmass.org. If we can have people reach their reps and senator by email and then by phone to include the workforce issue and the rate process, which is in the economic development bill, I can't say enough about it, getting the word out. We're trying to get the word out, but this is the time to impact people and their thinking, even though they may not actually formally vote on that till after November 8th. So after the election. And then just wanted to put a plug in. I don't know, Carrie, if you want to mention, if you have anything coming up soon in the next few weeks for people.
Well, let's see, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, Kathy Kelly will be presenting on, she's a benefit specialist from Mass Rehab Commission. And if you have kids in a pre-ops internship that's being paid, how does that affect the Social Security? So good information to know. Hope you can join
and
us.
Even if people so that's the program at the high schools and whatever. But what about, will you think our feedback will be helpful for adults that aren't in the pre-ETS program even? Just or not?
Yes. I mean, making sure
well, regardless of age.
Yeah, but it's going to be, she primarily is going to be focusing a lot on the student benefit. So
gotcha. Oh, okay.
There may be information that, they've already done that.
Okay, cool. Understood. Okay, thank you. So there'll be things that won't be relevant to other ages. Okay, thanks. And then you just had Saturday, you and Kathleen were both at the transition conference that you coordinated.
Yeah, and there's Ed Underwood, who also was part of a wonderful panel.
Oh, great. Ed's been busy then. Okay.
Yeah, it was a great day. We've received fabulous feedback and it was well attended, and it was just so nice to be in person and without a mask on.
Yeah. So no,
no one has COVID.
I have a cold and I'm at home today. I hadn't planned to be at home, but I am, we have a policy at our office. And I'll be testing again tonight, and hopefully I just have a cold, and I'm not expecting, I have to admit, I wore a mask and got to see Tina last night, and I can't, for those of you that can go, I mean, there's a big hole, I think, in the Opera House right now because of how good the person who played Tina was singing and how loud. Is just beautiful. But anyway, we'll go back to get off being distracted. There was a family, one of the board members from Northeast Arc had connected a family to us, and I recommend they're from the Southeast, and I recommended, I'm dying to know, I don't have their name, so I won't ever know if they attended, but that their son was in transition with autism, so hopefully they got there. This was weeks ago when I told them about it, so there was plenty of notice. Okay, so I introduced Kathleen already. Feels like an hour ago that I introduced you, Kathleen. But so, and then there's all kinds of, so look, I mean, why you want to vote, indirectly in the end of the day, if people, it's one thing to be an advocate, another level is really being civically involved, right? But when you know the people that represent you and when you're involved, and I'm getting to know the people, in this town that I only moved into a couple of years ago. And it's amazing how they treat you once you volunteer on something and introduce you to people. And that makes a difference. And these are some of the things. For those of you that didn't see it in the Globe, there was an accessory dwelling unit. For and against, of course, they're for and against the huge bill we call, Maura calls, Sullivan calls, which is the bill that would really, allow accessory dwelling units to remain, to be used for renting. And we're not even saying that, right? We're just trying to get another third of the cities and towns that don't allow ADUs at all for like kids with disabilities or seniors, right? Or adults with disabilities. Like, could you please have that in your town? And at least a third of Massachusetts cities and towns do not have ADU. And in those cases, our bill would require replacing the, removing the stove, removing certain items so that people could not advertise as an ADU just to rent to anybody. And we just felt that was a safer bill to get passed. We really, we'll see what the public reacts to in the Globe, because obviously the bigger bill helps us too, right? It helps allow for our goal to be met. So we would not oppose the bigger bill. But I don't think we probably want to get tagged on it. But these are some of the issues: abuse registry expansion, which I really am surprised we didn't get done this year. It was going to be expanding to rehabilitation, but ABA for adults on Mass Health. Mass Health does not pay for that. Police training expansion. We did pass other police training, and there's been change in staff at the police academy, and Maura just finally reconnected with somebody, and it was almost, it was great that they reconnected, but it was almost like there was a big gulf between, her last conversation and this one, but they may just do it without the law for ongoing training as well. And of course, supported decision-making and Operation House Call. So everything we do in the budget, changing policy, is affected by elected officials. So representatives and senators are all up for election, local senators, local reps. Go ahead. Go ahead, Kathleen. Why don't you do the next one?
Sure. If you could forward a slide, I think we
Oh,
have.
I'm the one that has it. I'm sorry. I thought you.
Yeah, no, and
Okay.
I think I can ask permission to share from you, though. That is a possibility, but
No, I'm fine. I'll keep doing it.
okay. So let's start here. We're going to talk about the importance of the disability vote, and what better way to start. I think we've shared this slide before, but I just love it. I don't see Diane on today, or Anna. They usually are with us here today. But this is just a wonderful photo to just show the pride of, Anna getting her letter that she's registered, to vote based on her obtaining a state ID. We'll talk a little bit more about that in an upcoming slide, but we just share to say, the impact that, engaging in the process. Leo kind of spoke to some of the ways in which, how important it is to engage in the process, by being part of a campaign, or just, coming to sessions like this or others. I see some of our partners on the call. But the disability vote can be so impactful. the numbers from the 2020 election, for instance, is that 1.7, this is nationally, of course, but 1.7 million additional voters representing disability vote, people with disabilities voting in a general election, increased by 1.7 million. And when you think about, researching topics that are meaningful to people with disabilities and myself, family members and partners, on the call, learning about which issues the candidates support, the ones that support those critical issues that are important to all of us, people with disabilities, and those that love them. Oh, I apologize, my phone. They're going to benefit. They're going to benefit from that. So it's just important. It's critical to get part of the part of the vote. I will say, though, that there's so much more to do because, why not? Let's engage those that were not able to vote in that 2020 election here in November. I think the number is upwards of 20 million eligible voters that were not tapped into in terms of they just weren't able to access voting in that election. So we do have much more to do and a better, a better job of that. Go ahead, Leo.
So in Massachusetts, there's 600,000 people who probably are eligible in one way or another for disability support. Like that could mean seniors, right? That have functional limitations as well. We say we have nearly 200,000 people with a broad range of intellectual development disabilities. That includes people with, mild impairments, right? And intellectual autism, it's, I mean, honestly, like we don't know the number. I mean, some people claim it's as low as, 160 something thousand in our state, if you use the national metrics that we use. But we do think that's sort of absurd, that numbers. But imagine if we got all the people with disabilities in our space alone, like if we found 3 people that hadn't voted, each of us, or 2 people, maybe I'm being too ambitious, and just help them vote. And of course, I remember Anna's mother as well, who Diane probably had to get her back into registration, right? Probably it had gone, disconnected, and just it just would make such a difference policy wise as well. So
absolutely. And on this next slide, if we move forward one slide, Leo, that's okay.
All right. Dense Leo. Okay, we're doing it.
I've
Okay.
selfishly added a slide here that we've also shared before, but it goes,
That's
here's
Leo.
my son. That's my son voting, right? And he, we'll talk about again in an upcoming slide, if you're a person with a disability and you want to vote and you just, you need support, or you're just not sure of the process, engage a friend, engage a caregiver, engage a neighbor, engage a support staff, perhaps. And in this instance, this just shows my son who has some significant needs and but has something to say. And so he's always had that way about him in terms of like wanting to be part of what we're part of. And, from an early age, taking him to vote, it's just something that, it was a natural progression. And he also, in obtaining a state ID, was automatically registered to vote. And, and took such pride in voting, like when you saw that look in Anna's eyes as well, is of course, this is just a valued role and a valued part of who we are as a society, of making our our beliefs and known through voting. So we can move to the next slide, which has more.
Well, before you do,
Sure.
the people here, are they in your locale? Are they different people who are connected to disability?
So,
they're elected?
Yeah, this was a local election. This was an April election. And so the process by which, for Liam, he needs visual prompts. And so we prepared him and as much as we could in the process, and he then selected his choices for each of this. So this was a local.
So that's really important, Kathleen, what you just said. I'm glad I asked the question, because you're not just going through the motions with Liam. right? And you're actually giving him tools so as much as possible, he can exert his opinion, realizing that you may have influence on it, right? As his mother, God knows my parents had influence on me, for years. And
Yeah.
so that, right? So I'm just saying
Yeah, yeah,
that's a role model for others. Like
absolutely.
don't just sign up, your son or daughter and okay, now you got a second
Absolutely.
vote. I mean, it may
Yeah.
turn out to be second vote, and we might like
Right.
that, by the way, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
not
right.
the way to do it, right? So
No,
anyway,
it
I
isn't.
wanted to
Yeah.
share.
And I think, being, having worked in, this space, like nonprofit space, and certainly having my own personal opinions on things, I sort of let it up in the air to say he's going to vote for who he's going to vote for. And whether it's a connection to something one of these folks is involved with that he's familiar with, or a sense he gets from meeting them, those things come into play. And I try to, as you may see, I won't speak to it because it's a controversial topic in my town and nationally, but even to issues that I may not agree with, if I know we probably didn't vote the same way on some of these issues on this page, for instance, without calling them out, but as much as I
I got a
can.
sense. I think I can guess which one. Okay.
Yeah. And so it was up to, but yeah, ultimately and we'll talk about what he was entitled to moving forward, but ultimately he went there with this prompt. My husband, his dad, he chose to go with him as his voting partner. And he was able to point, and my husband, his dad, was able to help him mark that page,
Sure.
which isn't the only way that we'll talk about. I
Right.
mean, there are, you have right to private voting, but
So
Liam did request the help.
I want to add one more thing, and so I'll never forget, and this is going back like 40 years ago, 30, well, no, that's not true, 34 years ago, when Joel Sugarman got elected in Kingston as a school committee member. And we weren't hearing about a lot of people who were doing that. And he has a daughter with a disability. I don't know how Joel's doing. I've lost touch with him, but I was so excited to hear that. And so pleased, and I was at a different job, role then in the South Shore, at the Arc of the South Shore, but it was really, I mean, I was psyched about it, and so were a lot of us around that people were getting engaged.
Yeah. And I will add anecdotally, I'm up for election on a school committee this upcoming term, and hopefully my picture brings him joy and he decides to vote for me. We will see.
Yeah, no restrictions the night before, Kathleen, if you can avoid them, till he votes.
Exactly. Yeah, right. We've got folks coming on in. And this is recorded. Obviously, we all know people who aren't able to make it today for different reasons. They'll be able to watch the whole thing if they so choose. So this PDF that you'll get, it has actually the clickable link to the resources. But we mentioned, and I'll mention again explicitly, if you are to do any business at the RMV, or actually if you have any business to do with Mass Health online through the Health Connector, unless you opt out, you are automatically registered to vote. That's something that we benefit from. That
So
can be
AAA, right? AAA voter registration.
Yes, for renewal. It could be for a driver's permit. And in my son's case, it's, the requirements I'll talk about is you have to be 16 years of age. So when he was older than 16 at the time, because of COVID, when we finally got into the RMV for that state ID, he was so he was older than 16, but he was automatically registered, even though at the time he was under 18. So it was just a wonderful thing that happened, that I didn't expect, actually, even being in this space. I didn't expect that was going to happen. So it was nice. So you have to be a citizen of the United States, right? You have to be at least, like I said, 16 years or older. It can be renewing a driver's license. It can be going for a driving permit, or it can be for that state issued ID. And there are some updates to whether or not somebody is actually incarcerated, their access to vote, which hasn't necessarily been an easy thing to do. If you are non-felony incarcerated, person, you still have that right to vote. And so we'll talk about some updated measures for that, for folks to access that benefit or that right, I should say, sorry, as long as you're a resident, citizen resident of the state. And I think that's all I have to say. So there we go. So there's the update. So back in June, Charlie Baker signed the Votes Act, and it did some really good things that are on this slide. And permanent vote to mail, I received mine right here. And the extension of that early voting, they decreased reduced the time between when you can vote next to the next election from 20 days down to 10 days. That jail-based voting, like I said, it's not that it wasn't a right, but it wasn't, there are measures in this Votes Act that ensure access and sort of information around preparing one to vote while incarcerated. And the one thing that didn't move from the COVID pandemic related accessibility rules from the 2020 election, Governor Baker, there was sort of a compromise. And one thing that didn't get into this Votes Act was a same day voting option. So that was something that in the last election, we had the benefit of, but as a compromise, that is not part of the Votes Act.
And just explain to people what same day voting, what do you mean?
So just that ability to go to your polling place, right, and register to vote on site. I mean, that was something that was put in place. It was really because of the COVID pandemic.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was a COVID related option that was available to people, and it just didn't make it into but it's really great that for you don't have to have a reason. Of course, there are many reasons that one would find a benefit to vote by mail, but you don't have to state a reason. So automatically in the mail, you'll receive, if you are a registered voter, you'll receive your little letter that's that gives you some information and some deadlines to say it's easy and convenient. Here's your vote by mail application. And it has to be into the local election office by Tuesday, November 1st. And so if you haven't mailed this out by that November 1st deadline, then it's important to secure support to get to the polling place on election day. But there is, they will be counted until November 8th. Actually, it's in this little paper that you will get. And like I said, the link on the first slide will click you to where you can find out if you are updated, if you need to do anything in advance to make sure that you're able to vote on election day.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
We move to that. So right here, we just have some important dates. So voter registration deadline is the end of October. We mentioned that vote by mail application deadline. So you need to apply to vote by mail by November 1st. Early voting is open in the last week of October and extends through election day. And then your polling location, which is clickable here on this PDF when you receive it, where do you vote? Have there been any redistricting in your local community? Or do you not know where voting? Are you a first-time voter? That's a great link to find out exactly where you should go to vote in the election in advance of election day. And the second link is just a link to some tips and strategies in terms of voting, the ability to have a support with you, but also the right to have your private vote, of course. And so everything's on the ballot, really. There's a lot of things on the ballot this time around, obviously. Thank you, Leo.
Yeah, just in case you want, just this is.
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's there's also a page on here that makes it a little bit easy to follow, but this gives you a lot of what we've shared. But thank you, Leo.
Okay, let me go back to
And you can also through that page. So the link that we shared on that first slide is to the Rev Up campaign, which also has some good information that we're a partner with. But I believe that goes to the Rev Up page unless we updated it.
Now, are you guys following with me on this, or am I still on the?
Yeah,
PowerPoint?
no, it's not right now. It didn't follow, but the last time it did.
I did it physically. That's
Oh,
why.
okay. That's why. Yep. Thank you.
So that's that. And
Oh,
then
it goes right to the
I don't think it
secretary.
was Rev Up. I can probably
Okay.
do that though. Rev Up Mass. Should I make a Rev Up Mass?
2020, the second link.
Oh,
There you
20.
go. Nope. You're right. You're right.
The first one?
Didn't pop up. Yep. That's a bill, the bill of
Yeah,
voting
it's
rights.
not behaving. Okay, can you see it?
That's okay.
And this is like,
That's talking about
this is a conference. Yeah, it didn't really take us.
yeah, thank you,
right?
Brianna.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got somebody coming in.
I think I can send the link.
Yeah, no, same thing. Okay. I was trying to, oh, you sent me a link? Okay,
just
yeah,
sent
that's
it.
where I went, but let's try this one. The
Yeah.
WordPress one.
Yeah, that's weird.
Let me see if the WordPress one came up. Thank you, Brianna. Let me just see what came. Oh, it did. Beautiful. Okay, let me go ahead and link to that. Hopefully it'll let me link to that. I didn't touch it. I should have touched it. Nope. Let me stop. Sorry, I'm going to take an extra second.
That's
'cause
okay.
I have to touch. It's weird. It's like you have to hit the thing and then it allows me to connect. If I don't hit the site, the page first, there's so many pages open. Okay. So this is here you go. I have the right to take part in civic life. I can, you know what, I'll put this, and I'll send it to Katarina for the PDF.
Mhm.
And it could have been on
So you can see all the updated, dates and how to apply for the accessible vote by mail.
as we
Yeah.
said, September 28th is now going to be at 1 p.m. We'll, as soon as we have that confirmed, we'll get the word out. We got contacted late Friday or Saturday, Kathleen, by the
Yeah, I
deal
think it was
campaign.
Saturday.
And to be honest, like he did have the opportunity to talk to a ton of mayors, and that sort of knocked us off the
Oh,
loop.
is that why it's been postponed?
Yeah, it's, I get it, he's he
Who
had
was he
maybe,
talking to?
mayors, right? Do I remember it right?
Yeah, it was
Might have been a meeting scrambled together and
yeah.
so we are, it's reality, right, Giassi? That's what, yeah, because you've been involved.
Yeah, and Jossie is part of the forum, so thank you,
Yeah,
Jossie, for
introducing.
your flexibility in that last minute sort of juggle, but we get it. We totally get it.
So I'm going to try to put this into the PowerPoint. It's at the link. It might be on the previous page too. I'll double check.
Yeah, we have a sheet to go along, a tip sheet as well to go along. We'll send to Katarina. But I believe it's that same link, so I don't know what
Okay.
that issue was, but
Well, I could
and so
have. Yeah. Anyway, this is
Yeah,
sort of voting,
yeah.
right?
Yep. So this is just if you have on the day of, hopefully there are no issues, but in the event that there are any issues, you can call toll free, or if you have access, if it's easier to email, they will be, and Disability Law Center information is here, but they will be on hand to tease out help with those barriers. And
Yeah, and I would encourage the first links, right? The first phone number.
yeah,
Then
yep,
could follow up later with DLC.
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
could then
on other
they get
global
like
issues.
10 calls. on 10 different places, or they get 3
Yeah.
calls and 2 calls in one place, there's a problem at that municipality and they can, work to address it. So.
And
Oh,
so,
there we go.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's great. So,
There it is. So it went
Yeah.
there. Good.
yeah, thank you. So, it's important that you learn about the candidates. It's important to, join us on those forums. It's important to learn what you can, ask the questions that you have about issues important to you. We are really fortunate in Massachusetts that we do have a constituency that, our elected officials are pretty available to us. Of course, we're in a busy time with this election, and but if you can connect with a campaign and reach out and ask those questions, or do a little background research on their own campaign pages in terms of what they stand for, that's really going to inform your vote, and it's going to make an impact on your feelings around being comfortable voting for the people that you select. And if they on their campaign pages, if you're already on them, or if you haven't, I encourage you to look. We have those links, like I said, on a page that we'll share as a follow-up to this. Reach out, see where they are, see if they're having any events or phone banking. There's lots of ways to get involved with the campaign, and just to learn more about the candidate, and asking them those hard questions, and putting them on the spot, and sharing what's important to you, and maybe that'll impact their stand on a particular issue. So it's really important. It's beneficial, and it will have an impact to get involved. And so, this is, I vote because. Why do you vote? What's important? So there's a toolkit there. We're part of that, Leo, and Katerina's been sharing some things on social media, but sharing why it's important to you to vote, that is one way to involve others in the process. Like Leo talked about, pulling in 2 or 3 people that you're unsure if they're voting, or if they know what's important to you, as their friend, as their family member, as their colleague. That's your right to share those things as you see fit. And if we keep those things to ourselves, people don't really know where we stand on the issues. And when it's appropriate to do that, it's important to do that. But it starts by checking your registration status. But there's time, if you are not registered, to register to vote. And if it's more convenient, or if it's necessary, or to vote by mail, there's that option. Look out for this envelope if you are already registered to vote.
Yeah, I dropped them off in city. I didn't even want to mail them. I dropped them off in City Hall last Friday, or Thursday.
Make sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And, we had gone into the primary physically. Then I said, why are we not voting from the comfort of our home? Even if I drop off the ballots in person, which I think you can do. I can't remember right now. We've done it once before.
Yep. Yeah, you absolutely can.
And
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, bottom line, like, I think sometimes extended family and friends who do care don't really, they might think everything's covered, because the average person, volunteer that I work with, whether they're a person with a disability or a family member, especially family members who are supporting the loved one, they rarely talk about, what they don't have for support, unless we have a meeting on that, right? Unless it's a topic like, services and self-determination or turning 22, right? You don't necessarily hear about that. You're hearing about their life. You're hearing about, oh, we just did this. We went, because people, the average person that I run into in my world here, sees the world, their cup is half full unless they're in crisis, So
Right.
A lot of times extended family, neighbors, and clearly some people don't want to hear, don't get me wrong. There are people who are not as welcoming as they could be, but if they knew that there was an impact, if they appreciated especially right now, how things are, right? I think they would be more engaged with us.
Fine.
too. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
I don't know if anybody, you want to ask, you might have one more thing you wanted to add.
No, I don't know if there was just one other slide, but maybe
No,
not.
let me go back to it. I
I
didn't
don't
think
know.
so.
It might have.
It
I could
says
be-
questions, I think,
Okay,
because when we
we're
update, well,
good.
let's see. Yeah, no.
there we go. Perfect.
My bet
Thank
was
you.
that was the Q&A one, so.
I have, can you hear me? Are you-
Sure, Kathy,
Yes,
go
I
ahead.
can hear you.
Yeah, I just have, it's a wonderful program. I'm really, really glad to have heard it. But I had just one small thought that I experienced. I began taking our daughter with me when she was even before being a teenager. She was, I think, about maybe 8 years old. She was very young. And every time I voted, she just came along. And then over time, I was then saying what it was about. At first, it was just a trip. She'd see the environment and all of that kind of thing. But after a while, she now, I should say, votes independently. But and then let me know, no, you're not coming in with me now. And that was just a wonderful day when she said, no, I can do this myself now. And but it took years, just incremental, little by little, from the time she was a little girl. That's a thought, not.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's great. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense,
Yeah, that was our path as well, Catherine. And I agree. It's such a great suggestion if you can do that for your community to get, all of the good things, but that familiarity. We did have a change in polling locations, but my son, anytime he sees fortunately, anytime he sees a police officer or any kind of official sign about he's really, because I think because we brought him and he's been aware, aware of those things, but it's definitely a help. It's definitely a help.
Anybody else before we? So, yeah, so I just want to encourage, yeah, Carrie, go ahead.
Kathleen, if you could just review with folks who whose kids may be under guardianship, what the rules are about voting.
Yeah, you absolutely, unless it is explicitly defined in your guardianship decree that you're unable to vote, you absolutely, and I believe we have a letter on our resource page relative to, if you type in guardianship on the ARC's webpage, you'll get the exact sort of wording around the understanding with our state and the what is the word I'm looking for, but the understanding, I'll just go with that, is that the legal, right, what's in the laws, what's in the regulations is clarified to be understood that you do have the right to vote. My son is now under limited guardianship, and we were in that process when he voted, and so although he wasn't under guardianship, there was no question, but it is understood. Yeah, it's on our understood that folks, unless it is explicitly written inside in that guardianship decree, you're absolutely allowed. You have the right, I should say, to vote.
Yeah, I'm looking for the thing by Fred Mislow, right? He
If you
talked
type in
about-
guardianship, did it come?
he
Yeah, there it
touched
is,
on
right there.
guardianship, so I might have to, huh? Did you see it?
Right down, right there,
Oh,
right,
there
a
it
little
is.
up, right there. There you
It's
go.
too small for my eyes. So therefore, a person is eligible to vote unless he or she is subject to guardianship decree, which
That's
specifically prohibits
specifically.
voting. So
Yeah.
thanks for Carrie for bringing that up. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, because I get that question a lot, and it's just important to know that doesn't, restrict you in any way, unless
Okay.
explicitly in there. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, everybody. And I just want to plug Take Action, arcmass.org, Take Action. And thanks for being with us. And thank you, Kathleen, for a great job on this presentation. Have a great
Yeah,
week.
thank
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.